So, have you ever had that feeling, where you feel like you're doing everything right? You're smart, you're capable, but something's still missing? Well, today we're going to dive into some really powerful and honestly pretty counterintuitive ideas about happiness, mostly inspired by the thinker Naval Ravikant. And just a heads up, this isn't about finding easy answers. It's about learning to ask way, way better questions. And we're going to kick things off with a statement that might just make you sit up a little straighter. Motivation is a scam. Yeah, this really sets the tone for where we're going. We're not here for some cheap, feel-good inspiration. We're here to actually deconstruct the mental software that's running our lives, for better or sometimes for worse. Okay, before we get into the thick of it, I just have to put this out there. None of these ideas are really original to me. They're borrowed, they're filtered through the minds of incredible thinkers like Naval and Krishnamurti. The point here isn't to convince you of anything. Seriously, the only real value you'll get is if one of these thoughts just clicks for you, in your life. So think of this as a mirror, not a manual. So with that in mind, let's get right to the heart of it. Let's talk about the central question that really started this whole journey of exploration. It's a real challenge, and it's aimed squarely at anyone who prides themselves on being smart or successful. And there it is, Naval Ravikant's simple, almost brutal question. If you're so smart, why aren't you happy? Oof. For a lot of us, that can feel like a total slap in the face, right? We use our intelligence to solve every other problem in our lives, yet we so often leave the biggest one of all completely untouched. I mean, just look at how we handle other problems. If you don't have enough money, you figure out a way to earn it. If your health is bad, you work to improve it. You diet, you exercise. So why on earth don't we treat unhappiness the same way? The core idea here is that happiness isn't some random mood that just happens to you. It's a skill. It's something you can actually work on. But, to really work on happiness, you first have to understand what it even is. And this next idea is absolutely fundamental. It's about how everything in life, and I mean everything, seems to come in pairs. So let's try a little thought experiment. Just imagine, for a second, that you wake up tomorrow, check your bank account, and you've won $1 billion. 1 billion. Can you feel that rush? The absolute excitement, the relief, the pure joy? Okay, hold on to that feeling. Now, let's flip that coin. Imagine you get a call from your doctor, and it's the worst news imaginable. A terminal diagnosis. Feel that pit in your stomach? The fear, the shock, the sadness? You've just pictured two completely opposite ends of the human experience. So how do you even begin to weigh those two things against each other? Well, Naval's perspective on this is kind of mind-blowing. He said that on his internal scoreboard, getting that diagnosis would feel about the same as winning the $1 billion. Now, that doesn't mean he'd be emotionless. It's about getting to a place of inner peace that's so solid that even these massive external events just don't knock you over. And that whole perspective is built on a really simple principle, dichotomy. It's just the idea that good only exists because we have a concept of bad. Up only has meaning because down exists. And this means that the very idea of happiness only exists because we also know what sadness feels like. You literally cannot have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin. You can almost think of our relationship with this idea in 3 levels. So level 1 is just pure reaction, right? Good thing happens, I'm happy. Bad thing happens, I'm sad. Level 2 is when you start to get it. You understand the connection and your reactions get a little less wild. But level 3, that's contentment. That's when you're so at peace that you can actually choose how to experience your emotions instead of just being a slave to them. Okay, so if this state of contentment is possible, what's stopping us from getting there? Well, a lot of the time it's the mental traps we lay for ourselves. These little prisons we build in our own minds without even realizing it. And believe it or not, it can all start with just one simple word: should. Think about how often you say it. I should be working out more. I should have done that differently. The insight here is that every single should is basically a contract you're signing with yourself to feel guilty. It's a little piece of code you run to make yourself miserable. And this exact same logic applies to something that drives almost all of us: desire. We think of it as a good thing, but you can look at it in a totally different way. As Naval puts it, desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. You are literally choosing to be in a state of lacking and unhappiness, just hoping some future thing will finally fix it. And when you really look at all these traps, the shoulds, the endless desires, they all point back to one single root cause: a total obsession with ourselves. That constant voice in our heads about my problems, my goals, my image. That is the source code for our unhappiness. All right, so we've looked at the problem, the nature of reality, and the traps we all fall into. So how do we actually break free? Let's talk about the breakthrough. That aha moment when everything can suddenly click into place. Let this quote really sink in. You have two lives. The second begins when you realize you only have one. You know, most of us go through that first life on total autopilot, just assuming there's always more time. But the second life, that begins with the deep, gut-level realization that this is it. This is not a dress rehearsal. And that's not a scary thought. It's the most clarifying thought you can possibly have. But there is a massive difference between knowing something intellectually and truly realizing it. It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the food. You can hear a quote like that and nod and say, yeah, that makes sense. But to actually feel it, to live its truth, that changes everything. And that really brings us to what might be the most important point of all. I can't give you wisdom. No book, no speaker, nobody can. Wisdom isn't something that's just handed over. It's created by you, the receiver, in the moment an idea finally connects with your own lived experience. It's an act of creation, not consumption. So we've gone through some pretty heavy ideas today, but remember, they're just signposts on a map. The actual journey, well, that's all yours. The only question that really matters now is the one you see right here. What realization, big or small, will be the one that kicks off your second life?